Hey everyone, welcome to episode 122 of BIM After Dark Live. Today we're going to be talking about making these plans. That's right, electrical power plans, lighting plans, and so on. So stay tuned, let's hop right into it and go right into the content. All right. Hey everyone. Welcome to episode 122 of BIM After Dark Live. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday night. This episode is going to be a quick one for two reasons. One, I am not an electrical engineer or expert. So my goal tonight is to just get you drawing electrical plans and creating drawings for your small scale residential. And number two, because my son is currently sick in his bedroom, and I'm alternating with my wife to sort of care for him. So we're gonna hop on. We're gonna do this thing. May not be a full hour this go around, but that's okay. I promise you, it's still gonna be jam packed with value. Because it's a short episode, I did want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor for this series, which is the North Wing series, and our sponsor is revitfamily.biz. All right, if you've been paying attention this season on BIM After Dark Live, you remember that Brenton Weiberg, who is a friend of the show and will actually be on the show next week, so stay tuned for that, created a website called revitfamily.biz, and he makes some incredible families for residential architects using Revit. You can save 20% off if you use the offer code 20 RevitKid24. Details are in the description below, so Brenton will be on next week, so you get to see some of the new stuff he's working on. But I wanted to jump right into that this go around because I am going to be using some of his families that I think are totally worth it for this electrical plan. Welcome to the show. If you guys are here live, if you've never been here before, this is a weekly live stream where we talk about Revit and BIM and really any associated technologies to architecture, engineering, and construction. We got some folks, returning visitors, some guests. Purvi, hey Purvi, long time no see. Purvi had an episode on schedules, probably 2 years ago now, from all over the world. So thank you guys for joining us. If you are here live, feel free to chat or ask questions in the chat, and I'll try my best to accommodate those throughout the discussion here today. And of course, if you like this content, whether you're looking at it tonight live or in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Give me a thumbs up and do all the great things to help this channel grow. So let's quickly run into the actual file and sort of talk about where we are. If you've been following along, this is a primary suite edition I'm doing, designing and building on my own house. And we've actually made some progress. The last go around, we talked about plumbing, and then we talked about some of the construction document side of it. The documents are pretty set now. So I'll just quickly run through a couple sheets so you guys can see, cover's done. We'll jump over site plan for now. There's a demo page, basement, all the floor plans are done. I did finish my sections and details. So my wall sections here. If you didn't see that episode, and here you can see here, where I talk about multi-category tags and material tags, be sure to check out that episode. I'll put a link below, but that helped me create those extremely fast. And I'm actually in the process of pricing this with subcontractors, and then going to be doing permitting and funding and all that stuff. The final episode of this series before the new year, I am going to talk about the GC side of it, the general contracting or the builder side of it, and share some of the tools and some of the things that I've learned and use to actually not just be the architect, but also the builder of these things. So super excited. I'm hoping to have a lot of the initial pricing and conversations with trade partners done by then, so then I can give you some feedback on that too. So that's where the job's at. what I decided to do when I started this series was I really wanted to highlight some of the areas that I know maybe people struggle with on the small scale residential side, or just areas where I know people maybe use a lot of workarounds or have very specific ways of doing things. And it's usually areas where us as architects maybe just don't touch that part of Revit very often. And so that kind of leads me to today, which is electrical, power, and data plans, whatever you want to call them. And similar to plumbing and even mechanical, on the small scale residential side, you may not be using an engineer for that stuff, right? A lot of times you're not, but you may be required to produce plumbing or electrical drawings for a permit set or for the permit for that specific trade. And so that's something that you do, and something as an architect that you learn how to do, but maybe haven't done it in Revit. So that's the point of today. I'm going to quickly check here. Awesome. All right. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat as we go along. So feel free to ask some questions. And I'll jump over real quickly to the sheet that we have here. So this is the current electrical power plan. And so what I wanted to do quickly is just talk about how I've structured these and why and whatnot. And so I do have a reflected ceiling plan. Okay, so there are lights on the reflected ceiling plan. If I zoom in here, there's lights, there's tags, but to me, the reflected ceiling plan, and so, I mean, I'll start right there, actually. That's a great place to start. There's always a little bit of a struggle, too, in Revit. Where do you put the outlets? Where do you put the switches? Where do you put the lights? And where do you show wiring and all of that stuff? And so, it can be a little, on a project like this, it can be a little gray as far as what potentially you should do. The truth is you can do lots of different things. On a larger project, it's usually a little more straightforward, right? You have reflected ceiling plans with lights, and then you have an E-series where it's just for power and data and so on and so forth. And a lot of times, even on those bigger drawings, you may have a power plan and then a lighting power plan. You might even have two plans. Don't think we really need to do that in a smaller project, but that's sort of the way it goes. So my approach, what I'm going to do is talk about my approach to these things, and then take it for what it's worth. And everyone may have their own approaches, but I'm going to share my approach, and hopefully it helps some of you guys who maybe haven't figured out what makes sense for them, and my reasoning behind it as well. So to me, the reflected ceiling plan, it's going to show a lot of information, but I don't think it's a good place to put wires and switches and so on and so forth. To me, it's location of light fixtures, type of light fixtures, ceiling material information, those type of details, diffusers, smoke detectors, all that stuff. It's a place to sort of show all of that in place, right? And then why not? In Revit, we're not double dutying, right? When we do that, like we're not drawing two things twice. So if you put a light there and you tag the light, then you can have a light in another view and tag it. So I'm always okay with having multiple views. So I don't necessarily want to, clutter the reflected ceiling plan if I don't have to. That being said, I have in many occasions used the reflected ceiling plan to show the switching, and then use just the regular architectural floor plan to show the outlets. Or the power plan, so to speak. And so I believe that's actually what I did on the first phase of this project. And reason for that is maybe it's not a very complex plan. So if I don't know if I have the plan in here anymore. Let's see. Phase 1, first floor. Let's see. Well, that's a framing plan. Sorry. Here we go. Let's see if I still have this in here. Perfect example. So for the phase 1 of this project, right? These rooms were very simple, right? It was a dining room and it was an office below. Okay, so if I go down to the bottom, it's an office below. Okay, actually there's a bunch of stuff in here. This is just, these are just detail lines to size furniture after the fact. But you'll notice I have the outlets on here. There was no interior walls, right? I mean, it was literally just, it was 4 walls and the roof, right? So to me, that's an easy area where you're not cluttering it up by putting the outlets in there. It's an easy spot where you can show these things. And the same with the reflected ceiling plans, right? If I jump back to see if I still have phase 1 in here for reflected ceiling plans. I kept all the phases. I just want to make sure. Yeah. So phase 1 reflected ceiling plans. Okay. I did the switching on that. So I showed power on the floor plan and switching on the reflected ceiling plan. That's great because it conserves paper, let's say, whatever, if we're printing anything, and you can see that information in one place. The problem is, right, if it gets more complicated, I think that just gets really, really blurry on the drawing side of things. So I think you can do it either way, but I think it also depends, right? I guess if you have a bunch of blowups with a higher scale, maybe then you can put it. But to me, I'm okay making another sheet if it means a better clarity on the drawing. So for phase 2, as you saw, I have electrical and power plans, which actually show the power and the lights in the same plan. And then I have my reflected ceiling plan and my floor plans. Okay. Take it for what it's worth. I'm sure everyone has an opinion on this. It's fine. I'm giving you the way that I do it. And I'm going to show you how I create that way. So the approach then is reflected ceiling plan, floor plan, architectural information and details, right? And then an electrical power and data plan. Or I didn't call it data plan. There's really no data anymore in houses. It's right. I mean, I guess there is, but I'm not doing any data in this one. And so really we're showing we're showing switches, we're showing circuits, we're showing receptacle and outlet locations and all of that good stuff. And we're utilizing the reflected ceiling plans for that. So that's going to be step 1. And I'll show you how I create the plan that you're seeing here. And then the other piece that I want to focus on, and I think we already talked about it in the chat a little bit, is let me go to phase 1 because I'm just as guilty as all of you guys. All right, so phase 1. Okay, these look graphically okay. Here's a switch here. Okay, if I click this, what you'll see is it's a detail line. Oh no, it's a detail line. Yes, I did not use wires for phase 1 of this project. Phase 1 of this project was 3.5 to 4 years ago, and I just needed to get it done. And I also didn't have access to the families that I'm using today. So the one thing I'm also going to show you today is how to not use detail lines. Detail lines are fine. They're whatever, right? They get the job done, as you can see, right? So I'm not saying that it doesn't work. But what you'll notice here is that if I select this, I'm actually using a switch annotation that I created or found. I think I created this one. So this switch is excuse me, sorry. This switch is an annotation. And why is that? Well, the biggest struggle that a lot of people run into with electrical power and whatnot plans is the fact that in Revit you are you're showing a 3-dimensional building in 2-dimensional views, and so you have things like a cut plane, a view depth, a view height, and all this other stuff. And so it can be extremely challenging to show a receptacle at 14 inches above the floor, a switch at 36 inches or 40 whatever, and then also a ceiling and have a view that works with those objects when you're using the out-of-the-box families, right? Reflected ceiling plan, you might want to cut a little higher so that you're not cutting above a countertop or some weird graphics are happening at 3 feet. You might want to be at like 6 or whatever it is, right? And you're looking up. And so if you're doing that, you're missing the switches. And so there's this whole big back and forth of trying to figure out how to make it work. And so I did use detail lines for this project. And so, yes, you can do it. But unfortunately, these were annotations. And yes, I could have found or modified or tried to get a switch family that worked, but these were annotations. The outlets were real outlets, the out-of-the-box outlets, but the switches were annotations because I needed to get my point across. But being annotations, now you're losing the value of BIM, which is also that coordination piece, right? This is maybe not a project where you worry too much about coordination, so to speak, but yes, seeing these things in 3D. So I'll jump back in and go to phase 2 now. If I go to my sheets, I'll jump to the plumbing sheet, which has some of my interior elevations on it. Okay, so if I go to my plumbing sheet here, right, seeing things like switches on the wall at a height, and then seeing outlets on the wall, which I don't think this is going to stay there, by the way, but seeing outlets on the wall and sort of looking at these things in 3D is super helpful from an architectural standpoint, right? Thinking about in the bedroom where we have a TV outlet and then we have a lower outlet and how they interact with the switches. It's one of those things where it's a detail that you can almost not ignore, but not pay as much attention to. But by having it there, and I mean, you can see exactly right here, right? I have a switch here, I have an outlet here, outlet here. If I hide this TV, let me hide it real quick, you know, as outlet up here, right? Seeing all this stuff and then maybe seeing it in the same view as your plumbing or your interior elevation and starting it becomes more than just plopping them on the floor plan, and now you're seeing them. You're gaining the value of BIM. So, you know, that's my evolution from 3 years ago. And what is it that got me there? Well, I'll do a shameless plug because it's the sponsor of this episode, but it truly is the case here, is Brenton's Electrical Families. And so he's coming on next week, not to talk about his electrical families. He did come on the show a year or two ago, which I'll find the episode and link it below, talking about these when he released them. But let me tell you something. These if it's at a minimum, if it's just the switches and the outlets, which I believe you can purchase for, with my 20% get discount, I think $140 or something like that. It'll be the best $140 you ever spent just to get the outlets and the switches. And so what I'll show you real quick is I have the full pack with all the lights, so you can see there's all these lights and all this crazy stuff. But you can just get the switches and the outlets, which is kind of what you're seeing on this side here. Let me jump in the 3D, and I'll go to these switches first. So here we go. Now, switches and outlets. So obviously they look awesome, which I think people even pick that up on the, if I zoom in here, all these switches and stuff. Graphically, they look really, really cool. But the biggest thing, and this is, I know because I've talked to Brenton plenty of times, the biggest thing was getting these to work in a 3D and 2-dimensional sense. And so he's built these families so that these symbols, right, the way they're hosted and the way the symbols are, you have a lot of control over visually seeing them, and that includes in different types of floor plans. And so what you'll notice here is on this view here, which I think is a floor plan, he's got lights, outlets, and switches all in the same view. That's something that's visually challenging to do with the out-of-the-box families. And so on my project, if I jump back over to mine, I actually was using my own lights and not Brenton's lights. So if I go to my reflected ceiling plan again, let's jump back to here. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little there. Most of these lights are actually light families that I already had, right? So these are this light here, this one here, and so on and so forth. So you are able to use your own lights, but having that switch and that power family is incredible, because what it allows you to do is it allows you to go to a floor plan. So I'll just take a default floor plan. So let me. I don't know why I keep clicking framing plans. Oh, I have all the phase 1 expanded too. That's going to drive me bonkers. Okay, let me just duplicate this one without detailing. Right, so this one currently has electrical stuff off. And so let me take this guy off, and I'll turn everything back on. Turn off my template here. Just turn all the stuff on for now. Okay, so notice when I turn on electrical equipment. So you're seeing the switches and the outlets in the floor plan view. Okay, I don't have to do any crazy visibility things, right? So this outlet is at 60 inches, right? This outlet's down at the 14 inches or whatever it is, right? These switches are at whatever default height we have them at, right? The 4 feet. Over here, these are at 4 feet. This is on the ceiling here, the smoke detector. Okay, that's on the ceiling, which we're letting it show down below as well. And so that alone, like I said, that alone, if you do that right away, you're already making your electrical power planning much easier just by using these families. Maybe there's other families out there that fine if you find them, but that will help you using the right families. And unfortunately, that is not the out-of-the-box outlet families and switch families, right? They don't have this ability with annotated objects within them the way Brenton built them, so that they see, basically wherever you need them to be. And so by doing that, this is essentially how I set up my electrical plan view. So that's kind of what I'll do right now. We'll walk into this part right now. So this is just a regular floor plan, okay? You saw I duplicated it as a dependent, or not as a dependent, sorry. I just duplicated it without detailing. And so what I'm going to do to show my lights, and this is pretty cool too. There's other ways you can do it. If you're using families that have it, like again, this is where Brenton's light families work, and mine out of the box ones don't. The symbol for the light will show in the floor plan if you want it to as well. But you can also do what I'm going to show you here, which is using an underlay. So if I look at first floor looking up and click apply, you'll see my lights came on. So there's my lights there. And even though it's an underlay and you can't actually select it, so to speak, what you can do is you can actually connect wires to it. Okay, so that's basically how I'm currently setting up those electrical power plants. Again, there's different ways we can figure out, we can talk about, but right now that's kind of working for me. And what's cool about it is when you graphically set it up right. So I just quickly made this view, but when you graphically set it up right, it can be a really simple way to approach electrical power plants, and creating them is much smoother than all the other workarounds that we've done in the past. And again, what you can do is you can actually connect them. You can even connect wires to these from this view. So if I jump back to my electrical plan, so you can see what I did in the electrical plan is that's how I created this. The only difference is now if I go to my view template for the electric plans, what you'll see is I did do a couple graphic override things, right? So I half-toned everything that wasn't electrical, and then I did give electrical equipment and fixtures and a few things different thicknesses. This is something for, obviously depending on scale, and it's very objective, but I did modify some of these. I even modified the wires to be thicker, and so on. And you could obviously mess with the home runs, but those are also not halftone. And so just by doing that, right, you already have a view where it's doing what it needs to do, right? It's showing the background, it's showing the content and the information you need, but it's also graphically highlighting what you really need there, which is the electrical power stuff, right? Okay, I'm just gonna check the chat real quick. Hey Rick, what's going on, man? Oh yes, good point, Pervy. Yes, there is an option to select the underlay. It's funny, and I think Pervy said in the comment there that doing that can be dangerous, and that's kind of why I almost don't do it. Personally, but yes, so good point, Pervy. So one thing you can do is when you're using an underlay, and I'll show everyone how to do that. Right now, an underlay, you can't select it, right, by default, right? That's because your little options on the bottom here, and anyone who hasn't looked at these options, if you've ever tried to select something that's pinned or a link in a project, and you frustrated, why the hell can I select that? It's probably because it's down here. There's an option right, where is it? This one. So this one here says select underlay elements. So I think it's defaulted off probably. If you uncheck that, you'll see I can actually select the underlay elements. Which, yes, in this case, yes, it'd be nice to have the freedom to select them, maybe if you want to move the lights or something. But to Pervy's point in the comment there, sometimes you want to see an underlay and not actually select it because, selecting across can cause mayhem. And so I guess keeping that defaulted on is probably a better idea, but good point, Pervy. Thanks for pointing that out. That lets you do that. Okay. And so, yes, and now we'll jump into the wire piece of it. So as far as laying out the plans, right? Once I'm going to go back to that one that I just made here. So this one here, I'm actually just going to apply my electrical template real quickly to it. And you'll notice most of my views, I have shadows and shading and ambient shadows. This is one of the ones where I actually turn those off because I think it's a little distracting with all the halftones and so on and so forth, at your discretion. But you'll notice I turned off the surface patterns for the ceilings. Again, that could be something you want to keep on, or you could use a filter to turn off the chipboard one or whatever it is, depending on your project. But that's kind of what I have set here. And so, placing them, what's nice about it, I basically create one of these views, and I'm literally just, create similar, and I'm just adding stuff around as needed, right? Again, if you're using families that are good, it makes it a lot easier, right? So right here, for example, this is placed at 1'2". Let's say I want it to be placed at 5 feet. I just click 5 feet in here. It moves it up 3-dimensionally, but it also keeps the symbol exactly where you need it. And then there's a little option here that says show height as a label. And so I click show height as a label, and it actually shows it. And Brenton was very smart in this, in that if I change it to 4 feet, you can see that it says 48 inches. If I change it to 5 feet, you say 60 inches, right? So pretty cool in that sense. You can also, change the faceplate and all that good stuff, but it makes it really easy and really fast to throw these things in here. Same thing with switches, right? Brenton switches, again, this has changed my approach to electrical power plants, and that's really why I'm showing it and talking about it so much. So if I put a switch in here, as you can see, I'm in a floor plan which is cutting at 3'6", and I'm seeing the switch symbol, which is, again, already a great thing. You can turn on the height if you want to. So height, turn it on and off and whatnot. I can say number of switches up to, I forgot how many he has there, but there is 4 switches, and you can see they clean up. But if you look closely, you can see that line there. Graphically, they look correct, right? So you have symbols that look good, but then 3-dimensionally, you can see there's a 6 bank, right? So again, makes this stupid simple to do. And each of these have a connector and do their thing. So, the shortcut here, or the shortcut here is using a floor plan with an underlay is a simple way to get to, power and electrical plan, and then using the right families. In this case, I'm using Brenton's families from revitfamily.biz. So, yes, the link, actually the links are already in the description below. But like I said, it's revitfamily.biz, and probably the best $140 or whatever it is that you'll spend. Because once you do this, it makes life so easy. So I'm going to leave those there. Actually, what I'll do is I'll delete this one and I'll change this to a 2 just for fun. All right, delete this one. I'll add, for whatever reason, we'll add another switch on this side. Don't know why, it doesn't make any sense, but okay. So you can see I'm just adding switches. These are wall hosted switches. I think he has ones that are non-wall hosted built in there too, but for the most part, wall hosted is going to work for me. And then I am using wires. So once you use, again, I'm not touching panels and home runs and calculations. Okay, I'm an architect. I'm doing residential architect. I care, but I don't care at the same time, right? And so I'm not dealing. So all do I need? I need a light fixture or an electrical fixture, we'll call it, and I need a switch, right? That's it, right? I guess if you want to power the outlets and show that, you could too. Maybe then that makes sense to have 2 plans. But right now we're going to talk lights and switch. So once I have those 2 things, I can use wires. I don't need to use detail items anymore, right? It's why would I do it anymore? So what do I do with wires? Very simple, right? If I go to System. Oh my gosh, Systems and Wire. So I'm just gonna, and if you pull this down, what you'll see is there's arc wire, spline wire, chamfered wire. So there's different types of wires that you can use. Let's just use a spline wire for now. And yes, I think somebody asked in the chat about locking to wires to connectors. Yes, they need to have connectors. Again, why good families are there. And that's also why with the lighting family, you have to be careful too. Again, these aren't all Brenton's families. These are mostly families that I've collected. Some are his, but they all have connectors at a minimum, right? And so if I click here, we'll just go like this. I'll make a curve just for the fun of it. And then what you'll see is this guy is actually looking for, I don't remember where the connector is in this one. There we go. I guess it was there. Weird. So you can see it actually connected to these pieces. Annoying thing about wires is this right here. And this is not just a Brenton switch thing. This is just like every damn thing. For some reason, it tries to assume where it wants to go. I'm assuming there's some sort of an algorithm or something that was built into it to say, bring it to the center of the object or whatever makes sense. But it almost never, I'm actually surprised that this one landed kind of where I would want it to land. It almost never lands where you want it to go. So what you got to do is you have to just pull the end of it back to there, and then it'll move. It'll do what it needs to do. And then this is a spline, so it works, however you need it to work. But the cool thing about it, of course, when you use splines over detail elements, is if I was to select this and move it, right, it adjusts, right? It stays connected to this object. Okay, and if you were using panels and systems and circuits, I should say, then obviously you're creating a circuit as well. So I'm going to do a create similar again. I'm going to connect from here, do a spline, go to the middle, and you can see how it jumped over to there. Super annoying. And it even does it with other lights. So now we have 2 connected here, and look what those wires do, right? And that alone, if I mean, you could talk about if you really wanted to calculate loads and the circuits and so on and so forth, that's one thing. But that alone, like having this thing hosted to this object, so that when you move these things around, right, they adjust. I mean, that alone should be enough for you guys want to use wires as well, right? I mean, why would you not? And so, if I jump back into this, the other thing that you'll also notice is I do have the wires. I do have an override. I have a thickness of, I think, 5 there. I don't know if you can do that in object styles, if you have to do that in visibility graphics. I don't fully remember. Here I actually, I think I did a curve instead of a spline there, so I should actually redo this one because that's kind of ugly. So here I'll just go back to wires. I'll do a spline wire, connect it here. Maybe this one goes like this to there. This is actually one of Brenton's fans. Notice that's a symbol there. And then of course, you always got to kind of check these initially. Again, I'm sure someone in Autodesk can explain what they're trying to do there. But you can see how easy and quick it is to make these things. So now if I move this, right, it adjusts. If I move the switch, right, it adjusts, right? See how that adjusts there. But yes, so as long as you have the connectors, it makes it really, really easy to do. Surface mounted switches and outlets too. I don't know if there's surface mounted. I can dig through it real quick, but I believe there's wall. So I think there's wall mounted, and then I think these are non-hosted. So I don't think they're surface, but they're floor, I guess, hosted, if you want to call it. And so this can be what you would use. Whoever asked that, sorry, I think Tyler might have asked that. But hosting that is long. So I mean, that alone, when you think about it, is so helpful, right? Okay, someone was asking about the break. So I'm going to do my best to sort of work through some of the things that happen in electrical, but I am not, again, an electrical engineer, and I do not spend a lot of time in this in this realm. So bear with me. But I think the question has to do with the break if you were to overlap switches. So I'll delete this wire, and hopefully it does it. I don't even know if it's going to do it if I want to, but if I go like this, for whatever reason, although I don't know if I'm going to do multiple breaks like this, it's going to really mess things up, but whatever. And then this connector is behind it. Yeah, so this isn't even breaking. Yeah, so we'll have to see. I know, so I guess as a tip for everybody who's never lived in this area, a lot of these settings, you can set up in the little down arrow under electrical. So that's kind of that hidden thing in Revit, that little hidden zone here. And you could see I could actually go under wiring, and there's a bunch of settings under wiring. And so let's see, show tick marks, slanted lines across tick marks, show tick marks always, gap of wire crossing 16th. So I have a feeling there's some settings in here that would probably do it. But yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that. It does a break with the solid. So there's, yeah. I'm not really sure. I have seen it do the wire breaks. I'm just not sure. And I'm on a live stream here, so I'll get back to you on the breaks. Good question though from Animal Works. Okay, what do we got? Anything else here? Electrical Rob has a YouTube channel. Good. Yep. Yes, I will 100% have a electrical pro come on to talk about the electrical stuff. But at a minimum, I wanted you guys to get to this point. And so I'm hoping that at least we got you there. And yeah, at Animal Works, I think I gave you at least a direction, which is, again, under electrical. One of the things, it's similar to systems and stuff. When finding the right settings, can be something that's super helpful. And so this to me, being able to change how the home run looks, what the arrow is for the home run, and so stuff like that. So you may, this may be something that I don't know. I guess I could change this to 1 inch and see what happens. I don't know. Oh, 3/4 of an inch. I don't know. Whatever. You get the idea. But that may be an area you want to look to play with the brakes and the wires when you model them there. So yeah, awesome. I'm just checking, make sure there's no more questions in here. Sweet. Yeah. So long story short of everything, make sure if you get the right families, and again, I'm suggesting revitfamily.biz because I love those ones. There's probably other Revit electrical families out there. Unfortunately, not the out of the box ones. They don't do exactly what you're talking about. Then you can use a simple floor plan, right? I know that's usually the start is where do we do all this stuff? Then you can use a floor plan. So use a floor plan, set it up so you have your correct categories showing. So electrical families, etc. I like to halftone the rest of it, the architectural stuff. If you're doing it in the same model, if you're not, then you can use links, whatever. And then use an underlay to show your lights, right? And then place all your objects and then simply connect them with wires, and you have a electrical wire plan done, right? At a minimum, I'm hoping that's what you took away from this episode. So I appreciate you guys coming on today. If you do want to check out this project in more detail, community members will have access to it. They already have access to different versions of it. I'm going to be posting one again. So if you're interested with sample files or the template that I use for all of this, head on over to community.bimafterdark.com. Join all of us in that area. And we actually have an office hour on Friday. So if you join today or tomorrow, you can join us on an office hour. I think it's office hour number 97 or something like that. You can hang out and Zoom with us. And then, of course, thank you to Brenton at revitfamily.biz. Use the offer code in the description below if you want to go get these electrical families, especially the outlets and switches. The lights are great, too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to dig into those today. If you want to, I'll put the episode with him, but definitely check those out. And Brenton will be on next week for episode 123 to show a whole new suite of families that he's created, which I think for us residential architects is going to be really, really cool. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you joining tonight, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.